my beautiful peeps. We are going to talk about some shadow work. I know it's kind of been a long time coming, but I've also been kind of putting mine off. Just because I've been in vacation mode. I have legitimate excuses, sort of. Not really, actually. I did shadow work on my vacation unintentionally because I didn't do it beforehand. So, the first card, this is basically like my Dark Feminine deck, but I like to use it for shadow work as well. So this deck can be interpreted in different ways, but we're going to go with the intention of clearing out some shadow learning. So yeah, we're going to get pretty in depth today too. I want to cover some like really important things because there's, you know, what I was just talking about is a prime example of why we should actually move forward with our shadow work, because if we don't, things will bite us in the ass later. So with that in mind, the first card that we pulled was the Nine of Wands. So just really going through like some turbulence and just not necessarily anything like big, any overhaul of like, toxicity, but there were some things that came up from our past, especially during like all of these things moving around with the planets lately. I have not been paying attention, so don't ask me, and I'm also not an astrology expert. I wish I was, but I'm just not. I'm still learning, just like y'all. And I know there were some things going on because I could tell with everyone else's energy, everything was a little chaotic and people were just kind of on edge constantly. So yeah, that you can really just kind of reflect with the attitude of like generally everyone around you, what's going on with the planet. So I'm just putting that out there. But yeah, so just a little wary from battles and tribulations. So just kind of be working on your inner patience. We have the Eight of Wands reversed. So just just focus on like just taking a step back and being patient with yourself, because even though we had an opportunity to like clear some of these things up in the past, doesn't necessarily mean that what we're doing right now is wrong, or that we should have just already taken care of it. Yeah, it would have helped us not have to go through whatever we're going through now. However, it's not the end of the world. It's just, another test, and to see if you were willing to complete it. And, if you got this far and you cut some people off, I am very proud of you, because that is not easy to do, especially when we love that person and we know that there's nothing that we can do to reach beyond where we've already, presented so many patience and understanding towards that individual, but that just seemed to never click. And so they, in regards to our own boundaries, disrespected the hell out of that. And so we had to make the necessary steps to separate ourselves from those people. So this will be in regards to people from your past, whether it be relationships, family members, friends, like long lost childhood friends, not even lost, but long childhood friends. Like there was some toxicity growing up that we were actually pretty aware of, but us as people, we expect people to grow out of these societal norms, or these attitudes, or just generally like you would expect people to grow up from who they used to be. That is the general expectation, but I'm sorry, but that general expectation will leave you pretty disappointed in life. So don't have any type of expectation for somebody to be changed, grown. I don't care if they were, a kid when they were having that attitude. Just have that expectation of who they used to be. Give them the general opportunity, obviously, the benefit of the doubt to be a different person and whoever they've grown into be. But, don't let that slip you, is what I'm trying to say. Like, don't expect them to be the worst, but also don't expect them to be the best either. Like, that expectation is what's going to actually hurt your attitude and aptitude towards things, like way more than like whatever it is that they actually did. So it's your expectation that's actually going to make the situation worse. So don't go in with a general expectation that people have changed or that they've grown up just because they're older. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. I'm sorry. But yeah, we have the three of pentacles here, our last card. So there's going to be some new collaboration with people, big groups. So whether you're stepping into like a new career path, or if you're just stepping into like your power and you're wanting to like follow some career goals, career paths, like you're going to be in this collaboration mode. You just want to put yourself out there and just kind of start with like a fresh slate. This week is really about starting clean. I know that we talk about this during like new moons and stuff, like that's like your fresh slate, your time to really like reflect on what you want to start bringing into your life, or what you're making clear of, actually, because that's more of the full moon. But like, yeah, what you're wanting to clear out so you can make space for. So in doing so, you want to be like cleaning, you want to be organizing, getting your schedule down, starting a healthy routine, and just getting your your general vibe uplifted. Whether that takes like some actual strength and motivation, you're just putting that attitude towards wanting to shift into positive things and leave the past behind you. That is an actual reset. That is like the best reset you could ever give yourself. So, if somebody has fallen off and they've continuously fallen off, or if they have just disrespected you once, like a really important boundary that should have been black and white, should have been known, maybe it's something you've even vocalized, but it's just even as simple as self-respect. Like if you don't have respect for yourself, the other person's not going to respect you either. And so that you want to hold yourself to some standards and some boundaries and expectations for yourself versus the other person, because having that expectation met will allow you to not feel so much anxiety when somebody is testing you or is pushing you, pushing your buttons intentionally or even unintentionally. Like you can learn how to handle the situation with a more grown attitude, so you're not just reacting and versus responding to what somebody's doing. So if somebody is doing something toxic, you can learn how to actually remove yourself from that situation, regardless of who they are, how connected you are with that person. Like you can remove yourself from a situation, and that will be a painful, move. Maybe not always, but sometimes it is, because sometimes we feel really connected to specific people and we give them so many opportunities, and it's just like, oh, why? I've been so patient with you. Why? Maybe if I just try this. No, just don't. Just start over, cut people out. I know that it's not what you want to do. Eventually that pain will fade away and you can love them away from them. That's fine. Let them grow on their own. But having that energy around you constantly 24/7 is not going to help your growth. It's going to make you stagnant, and it's going to make you hold yourself back. And I don't care how dishonest or honest you think you are with yourself, you are going to lose patience. You are going to be responding to their negativity. They are going to continue to have negativity in your life, and it is going to continue to affect you, because they are going to come to you as if they are energy vampires, and they're going to come and leech off of whatever happiness and joy that you have, and they're going to bring their toxicity and negativity into your life, regardless of what effect that has on you. And maybe that's not their only intention, maybe that's not their intention, however, it's still going to happen. And so we got to remember like what we have patience for, what we have time for, and what we don't have time for. So just make sure that you're really honest and raw with yourself versus just other people. Yeah, you should be honest and raw with other people, but to be honest, we can separate ourselves like really silently. We can just be, you can be honest with that person if you really want to. Maybe I definitely suggest doing that. However, sometimes it's better to just keep your peace by holding on to your words. And I know that people will probably be like, no, I'm not keeping my peace. I deserve my expectations to be met. I get it. I totally do. But vocalizing that to some people, like maybe you can vocalize that to certain people, but you can't vocalize that to everyone. Not everyone is going to hear you, no matter how many times or how many different ways you try to tell them. It just doesn't work out that way. So don't go into any situation with like the same approach either. Everyone has a different approach in life, and they have a different attitude, and you can grow and learn about the different attitudes that people will hold. But having your own expectations and your own boundaries will allow you to navigate through life in a way that will allow you to flow and not worry so much on tiptoeing and walking on glass because you have to find some new way to approach a different new person in your life. No. There is a general way to approach anything, and it's with patience, boundaries, and respect and communication. So, if you have those things figured out, then the rest of it will come through. Just like there has to be a time in life where we realize where people are just not going to change who they are, so we have to separate ourselves from whatever situation that was, no matter what we want to do to help them. Sometimes helping somebody is leaving them. I know that that's hard. I know that that's a hard concept to understand. But a lot of people can actually really pull themselves out of their situations. They're choosing not to because of the amount of help they're receiving gives them appraisal, love, and the toxic connection that they're actually craving, which again is concludes them as an energy vampire. But I'm just saying, like, some people will have options and opportunities right in front of them, and they will blatantly choose other options and other choices that do not benefit them just because they want to have this circle, this ritual of draining, regaining, and their ultimate happiness, their actual happiness isn't what they're actually searching for. It's just from the acceptance from you or the love that you're giving them. That's what they're actually after. And that doesn't go for everybody. But that generally can be a big major player in why you may be seeing the same toxic patterns in different people or the same person. There is only now. Yesterday was heavy. The other reading. Yesterday was heavy, grabbing onto the past. Wow. Or tripping out about the future is like putting your consciousness in a rocket ship and blasting it off to the present, out of the present moment. And the present moment is all we have. It's where eroticism and passion live. So if you're like worried about what somebody's going to say, how they're going to respond to you, holding on to your own standards and your own boundaries and vocalizing who you are and what you want out of respect and the other person, that, if you have to worry about that and you're putting this anxiety, first of all, you're already putting yourself in that rocket ship. Like, don't do that. Like, if somebody, like, yeah, you should be practical. Maybe you should write some things down before you just approach that person with whatever toxicity you could also be spreading. But, just try to communicate that to yourself. Vocalize it, like read it out loud a few times, see how it sounds, see what the approach is, see if you're being a little sensitive or if you're being a little selfish, or if you're and I'm not saying that like either, like maybe we can be selfish sometimes, babe. Sometimes you should be selfish, but I'm just saying, like, be like raw and honest about it too. Like, don't just go in and be like throwing all this stuff at somebody either. Just be honest with your approach, be patient with your approach, and communicate your approach healthily. If you don't know what that means, watch some videos. I am not a communication coach. I am still learning myself. But the point is, there's so many different ways to handle different situations. So just, go out there, get some self-help on YouTube. You can Google it. It will pop up. There's a WikiHow for everything. So if you're not sure how to approach somebody, if you're not sure how to vocalize something, there's a way, there's a path, there's some steps that you can take to learn. So don't stop just because you're not sure or you're afraid. A stressful inner monologue is understandable, especially when you're uncomfortable in situations. But if you're not doing something about it, you're giving away your power. You're dampening your pleasure. Would you want to see a loved one deny their own birthright? Would you want to see somebody just blatantly give away their peace to somebody else just because they want to keep the peace between them and keep that person happy? No, you don't want to see that. You don't want to see that happen to people you loved, so why would you do it to yourself? See yours the same way. It's not up for grabs. Gift yourself presents. Dance, sing, and be here in the present moment. Like, you can't just be there for everybody. Some people have these patterns, and sometimes we got to start realizing the patterns that exist within individuals that are close to us, because sometimes those patterns can actually be affecting us, even though we feel guarded, even though we feel protected, or whatever it is. Like, those things can still affect you. I love you, but you're a human still. No matter how much obsidian, how many crystals you wear, like, sometimes these people can still like come into our lives and try to cause chaos. Yes, yes, there will be a way to navigate it. And I'm not saying that you should avoid all situations just because there's an opportunity for them to mess up. Like, that's crazy. But there's, there's ways to not have to deal with certain things. I call it, wait, no, I do have a word for it. Hold on. Prevention. Okay, nope. Okay, no, I just say it's preventable. So anything is preventable, and if it's preventable and it's actually going to affect you in a long way financially or physically or whatever it is, like if it's going to affect you in your career or anything like important of value to you, like just be aware and know how to take some steps to prevent things from happening by creating backup plans, by taking care of responsibilities, regardless of what somebody says they can handle or what they have figured out for you. Like if they say that they're going to have all of these things figured out for you, they're going to pay for whatever such and such, like have a backup plan in case things don't work out and that person doesn't fall through, just because you want to be responsible and not because you have anxiety and you're afraid that they're going to fail or anything like that. Just have a backup plan for yourself. That is called self-care. Having a backup plan is self-care. It is not anxiety. You can have anxiety attached to it, but if you go in with the approach of not having anxiety, you can do things in a smart and consistent way that will actually help you if something were to happen. So, it's not about the overthinking part and, oh, this bad situation might come up. No, it's not about the worrying. It's not about the stress. It's not about, oh, the worst case scenario. It's not about worrying about that, but it's being prepared for, people not holding up to their own standards or whatever. Maybe something happens to them and there's nothing that they can do or that you can do for them, and something just happens. Just have a backup plan for yourself, because it will help you in the long run become much more responsible for, dealing with different situations personally, and you can just, and professionally. So just learn how to always have some sort of backup plan and ways to approach things differently in case something doesn't work out. So, especially with meeting new people or having new opportunities, just have some type of way where you know that you're going to have your own back if somebody else isn't going to have your back. And inside you is yearning, hungry like the wolf. Inside you is yearning, ravenous beast. It's filled with insatiable lust, greedy and grasping for carnal embrace. We can often be afraid of this creature and its cravings. Religions have been built on less, but our hunger remains. It lies in wait until we're brave enough to unlock its door, but unlock it we must. So, giving yourself permission to what you want and with harm to none, is the difference between a hungry wolf and a caged and angry, vengeful monster. Befriending your beast is your own way. So, understanding to love your shadow and its needs, and how a natural and well-adjusted wanton penchant is acknowledged. I don't honestly know what that means. I'm sorry. Understood and expressed. That's when the fun begins. So protecting your shadow, loving your shadow, and with harm to none, of course. Just if there's lustful things like sexual, carnal, money. If there's something you're craving a specific person, like figure out what that shadow is, why you're craving something specific, and ways to kind of again, harm to none, approach things where you can find the pleasure in and know what it is that you're actually craving and what it is that's going to appease that craving and what's going to make you, satisfied with that craving. So sometimes we fall in love with a specific person or the idea of somebody, and we fall in love with like the lust aspect. We want to have a baby with somebody, or we have like this idea that things will work out a certain way if we love them a certain way. So things like that you want to be really aware of, because those things can hide some stuff about your truth and your inner child wounds and attachments to people. And learning things about what your cravings are and where they actually come from can help you please yourself and love yourself, and again, respond to those cravings in a healthy way, where you're actually, pleasing yourself, you're bringing that pleasure into your life, and you're not hurting yourself or hurting other people by doing so. So, again, like having a healthy approach to anything, your shadow is there as a guide into yourself. So you know that there are things that lie dormant. Religion teaches us that, lust is sinful, having sex unmarried is a lustful, sinful thing, and it's frowned upon, shunned. And it's actually, there's so many ways where we can please ourselves, but having that sexual partner really helps, obviously, with the arousal, because there's energy exchange. So, like, when we're searching for people like online or hooking up with people online, being honest is your best way, because that's, it's, I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to online dating or anything, but it can be like a treacherous place to actually find somebody. So just being communicative and honest when you're meeting people online is a really great way to protect your shadow, but still be in touch and in tune with your shadow, so you're still out searching, or not searching, but you're still attracting what is meant for you, like sexually or sensually, and you're bringing that pleasure and accepting that pleasure into your life, but you're still communicating your own standards and your own needs to whoever's trying to approach you, so you can scare away what's not meant for you. I'm sorry, but I am that type of abrasive Virgo. I will scare away anybody who is not meant for me. I'm going to tell you what my plans and life goals are, and if you don't have any of these type of standards for yourself, one, I'm going to see you in a certain type of light where you don't really have a life plan for yourself, and so I'm going to see that as a red flag, and then I'm going to kind of tell you what I want in the long run. Even if it's not something I need in a couple of years, I will tell people, like, hey, I want a family, I have career goals, I have this thing that I do online, I have my own path, and I just want to know what path you have, and if that can actually, if we can meet some type of like energy exchange where this is not, not so formal, of course, but I'm just coming in from a formal approach, so it makes more sense. But I'm trying to meet people who have the same ideals, have the same morals, and have the same expectations and boundaries in life, so we can communicate with a flow, we can communicate with energy exchange and be mutual and respectful of each other, even though we may have differences or different approaches in life. Like, I'm not saying that just because somebody's completely different from me, I'm just gonna be like, nah, I'm scaring you away. No, but I'm going to literally tell you what's going on, what my expectations are, and if I am actually emotionally available for you, because I want somebody who is going to meet me at the same level, the same standards that I have for myself, because that is self-love, that is self-care, that is us going into the situation with the expectation that relationships should be mutual, whether they be friendships, relationships with lovers, whatever it is, family members. Like, we need to have these connections where there's mutual respect and understanding. So there's so many things out there. There's so many different, we become people pleasers through society, through school. School honestly teaches us to be people pleasers because of the grade aspect, and having to come in and get this respect and validation from our peers through all sorts of different social norms. No, I'm not saying, I'm not knocking public authority, school education system, but my point is there are these societal standards that may not always be exactly healthy in response to what is actually good and beneficial for our own mental health. So don't go around and see what other people are doing and just approach things that way, because you don't know what's actually going on in that person's life, especially if they're like a celebrity or something, or some type of influencer online. Like, you don't know what goes on in their background. I have things that happen over time all the time. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. I have seizures. I have, you know, anxiety sometimes. I have a lot of major red flags myself. I'm not perfect. But my thing is if I'm going through some things too, I'm going to like cut the people out who have a lot of stuff going on in their life too, because it is going to be a toxic cocktail for some BS. You don't want to be a part of all of that. So, you know, be honest and be raw with yourself and then with other people too. Like, just be like, hey, you know, there's a lot of things going on in your life, and I totally love you and respect you, and I want to be there for you. But I have a lot of things going on in my life too, and I feel like if we continue this approach, we're going to stumble into a very toxic cycle, and I don't want that for us. So let's separate ourselves for the time being until we figure some things out, and then maybe we can come back to this and see, you know, how we're doing. You know, you don't have to completely cut people off. You can just give people space. Honest space is a respect for yourself and being honest with yourself and what your own limitations are. So sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean you have to cut people off completely. Sometimes we can cut people off temporarily, or, you know, go through these selfish errors, these selfish periods where we're focused on ourselves and we're working on our own growth and our own path, and we're not concerned about what's going on in other people's lives, because other people can figure out what's going on in their lives. I know that that doesn't always, sometimes it's like, well, gosh, it doesn't seem that way. But, you know, that is the ultimate test here, because again, people can fall into these cycles and be stuck in those cycles, and they will want to drag you into that cycle themselves, and they will have never changed. But it is, you know, it is beneficial to give people the benefit of the doubt. But how many times are you going to go through life giving people the benefit of the doubt? I love my best friend. Just put that out there. Probably, I'm not going to talk too much about this, but we had to go separate ways because we had our own things going on in our own lives, and it was starting to affect each other. And so we are no longer communicating. So it's just, you know, sometimes it's really hard because I've known her, I've known that girl my whole life. I've known her since I was a kid. We've known each other. We grew up with each other. We know each other's parents. We were very close. In a lot of spiritual and, you know, and emotional ways, and we had to separate ourselves because we were going through some growth, some inner work, and some like, you know, this isn't saying that, you know, she was going through so much and she was like, you know, bringing all this stuff to my table, but there were things that were affecting me, and there was a loss of respect that was gained through all of this trial and tribulation. Now, that's not to say that she was a bad person. She's a great person, but those things, sometimes we got to separate ourselves because there's just so much going on in between two people's lives, and it's starting to affect the two people, and it's not about the two people individually, it's about what's going on in their lives. So you just want to be honest about that. So just realize that, you know, you can't change situations, you can't just, you know, fix situations for other people either. So go through and pick out some scenarios, and how we can work towards a, you know, a better approach. And even if you're wrong, you know, maybe it doesn't feel right. Maybe it's not about feeling what's right. Sometimes what we need to do feels really, really wrong. And that can make the choice even harder. But being honest about the choice that you need to make is what's really important. So it's not about the pain or the path itself. It's just about being really honest with that approach, and so you can separate yourself from things that are just causing harm. So yeah, be honest. It's really hard. It really is. It's hard to be honest with yourself. I love her, and we've had some, you know, ups and downs. We've had some times where we've separated ourselves because of people and places we were associating ourselves with. We went on different paths, and then we came back, and, you know, it didn't work out again. Things are always going to be constantly changing. That doesn't mean that somebody's not going to change in the future. That doesn't mean that they're going to be different in the future. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that life happens, and we experience it differently, and people have a different approach to stress levels, and they handle things differently, and the way that you handle things are going to be different from the way they handle things. So just be honest about that too, because yeah, You can't expect people to just grow up. You can't expect people to change and have all of this positivity in their mindset. I love you and I love them, but it's not possible to expect that from them. You don't know what they're going through emotionally, and you don't know what they're processing emotionally. You don't know how they process things emotionally. And that's not to excuse their behavior, but you don't know what it is that's processing in their brain at all. And so that alone is going to create this gap in between y'all where you're never going to be able to figure it out because you don't have an understanding of what they're doing to process stuff. And maybe they're not communicating it, but that's their thing. If they're not capable of communicating it, you can't just sit there and pry and expect people to be honest and communicative. I love you. I know today's lesson was really hard, but hopefully this soft core approach will show you that, whatever choices you made or are making or wanting to make can actually be, beneficial and not so negative, even though it feels painful. It can be hard to do and communicate these things. You are still capable of doing it. It's just being honest with yourself and with other people is the key to actually processing that pain and emotions involved with separating yourself. So it's not just, it's not just like things are just easy. I love people, but some people act like cutting people off is so easy to do. And, at some point, in some level, I think that those people are toxic too, just because it's so easy to cut people out of their life. It's like, well, did you really care for that person? Did you really love that person? And do you still love them now? Or are you just toxic yourself and you're separating yourself emotionally in regards to who and the choices that they've made? If you're just cutting people off all the time, that might actually say something more about you and yourself and what your high standards are and expectations are. So you gotta be level, you gotta be grounded here. You can't just come through and just wash through everybody's life like you're some giant troll who needs to be respected and loved and cared for in all these sort of ways. Like, people have things going on in their life. We gotta be honest with that too. Like, they have things, genuine things going on in their lives too. And you don't know, like, even if they say a lot of the things that they're going through, like, there could be more or there could be less. You have no idea. You have no concept of that. So don't go through and let other people's energy affect you, because that alone is what's going to damage the relationship. It's you letting things affect you a certain way. Yeah, I know that sometimes it's hard to respond or react when somebody is really bitter and gross towards you. But that's when you can learn to just separate yourself, because if somebody doesn't respect you enough anyway, like, why are you trying to communicate that at all anyway? You're just wasting your breath. You're wasting time. You're wasting energy. Just separate yourself and make the hard choice and go through the processing of the pain, because I'm not saying that choice is easy in any way, but it is beneficial for you in the long haul, in the long run, to hold your own respect and boundaries and take care of yourself and your own priorities before other people. Self-love is key to growth, and that is self-love. Self-love can be a hard choice to make. It can be difficult, but sometimes the harder choices are the best ones that we can make for ourselves and for other people. Ooh, the way I said that was a little salty. We're not making choices for other people, but sometimes we gotta cut people out because they will try to attach themselves back to us, like, oh baby, I'm a change, oh girl, I'm a change, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do these things, blah blah blah. Like, just separate yourself, because them apologizing, being apologetic, that is not the sorry that you need. The sorry that you need is change. If they are not changing their attitude, if they are not changing the way they approach things and putting some actual audacity towards actually doing that, like, I'm not saying that they have to change overnight either, because change is actually difficult, but if they're not actually trying, take note of that. Take note of what they're actually doing to make a better choice in life, and use that as a tool to see if people are respecting your boundaries and respecting you as a person. If they're breaking that trust, then they do not respect your boundaries, they do not respect you, and you need to, again, separate yourself from them completely. The harder choices sometimes are the best ones. Again, I love you guys. I hope today's video makes sense. I hope you guys and go through this process rapidly, but assure yourself that you're making the right steps and choices in your life that are going to help you grow and help that person grow separately, because sometimes we got to be the lesson. I'm not saying this from an ego perspective, but sometimes we are actually lessons for people, and sometimes we just got to learn how to accept that. Like, sometimes we are actually the freaking gold standard, or the gold not gold standard, we're the golden crown. Not always, really not always, but sometimes we are actually the freaking lesson for some people, and we gotta learn how to separate ourselves and say no, because sometimes we're somebody else's lesson, and that's just life. Like, I mean, it's just life works out that way. There's this part and that part, the masculine, the feminine, the black, the white, the shadow, the light. Sometimes we're the lesson and they're the learner. Like that just works that way sometimes. It's so unfortunate, but sometimes we really do gotta accept that. And I'm not saying to take that from an ego perspective and be like, yeah, I'm that person's lesson, and just approach everything that way from now on. Like, don't think about that at all. But I'm just saying, like, sometimes we gotta learn how to accept it and just stop. It's hard. It really is. Because we love people and we wish the best for them, but that doesn't mean that we are going to continue to stay and accept whatever it is that they're bringing into our our dish table every freaking day. So I hope you guys liked today's video. We are hitting the 40-minute mark. I try to keep these videos short for you guys, but I thought that all of what was talked about today was very important, because it's actually been a pretty prominent lesson in recent years, especially recently. So just learn that, just because we love somebody, we've had this strong connection or tie, we've learned or we've known them our entire life, that doesn't necessarily mean we need to put them on some type of pedestal or have less respect for ourselves because we love this person, we want them to always be in our lives or whatever. Like, we can love people away from them. It's not easy, but sometimes the harder choice is the best choice to make for yourself. And if you really want inner happiness or inner peace, just know that sometimes you do have to make the hard choice. Okay, I love you guys. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, even if you hated my ranting today. Hit it anyway, because I love you guys, and it helps me, helps you, help you, me, help